After being banished from the park for destroying the animal's home, a squirrel has to get food for them all from a peanut store, unaware that a gang of thieves is hiding there. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, The Nut Job, from 2014. In a park in the big city, Squirrel Surly and his rat friend called Buddy are looking for food. They climb a pole in search of eggs in pigeon nests, but come up empty-handed. Luckily, they find a cart selling peanuts nearby and hatch a plan to steal it. Meanwhile, in a tree in the park, a group of animals go to look at their stock of food, which is completely empty. Their leader, a raccoon called Norvirus, also finds out about the cart and asks the squirrels, Grayson and Andy, to get the food from there. A few minutes later, a armored car pulls up near the park and starts unloading the money into the nearby bank. At that moment, the owner of the peanut cart, together with his accomplice, observes everything and seems to have plans to take the money. As they watch, a Girl Scout appears and asks for peanuts, but the owner of the cart pays no attention to her. The girl gets angry and raises her voice, so the man shoves peanuts in her mouth and tells her to go away. Seconds later, Surly and Buddy arrive at the tree above the cart and go over their plan. They intend to steal the peanuts, eat them all and hibernate all winter. Soon afterwards, the Girl Scout returns with a guard and accuses the man of hitting her with peanuts. While the man tries to explain himself, the squirrel sends the rat into a bucket and pulls it down with a rope to the cart. Shortly afterwards, the forest squirrels also arrive to collect the peanuts. While Grayson keeps watch, Andy climbs the tree and finds Surly who, on seeing her, is startled and knocks over the bucket on the cart. Fortunately, no one has noticed anything and the rat continues with the plan. Meanwhile, Andy tells the squirrel that the animals in the forest also need food, but he doesn't care and climbs down the tree to the cart. When he gets there, Surly opens the lid and fills a bag with food. However, just as he was about to escape, a pug sees the squirrel and tries to bite him. The squirrel hides inside the cart, but the pug blocks the exit. He then takes the handle of a gas cylinder and puts it in for her to bite, but it's no use. To make matters worse, she pushes the trolley, which begins to speed down the slope. Seeing this, Andy runs over the park wall and jumps in. When she reaches the cart, she picks up the bucket with the rope and throws it at one of the pillars of the wall, which causes the cart to change direction into the park. After all this running, the cart finally stops at the edge of a hole. However, Grayson appears shortly afterwards and his weight causes the cart to fall into the hole. Despite this, everyone is fine, but Surly notices that the gas in the cylinder has started to leak and the inside of the car is on fire. He then takes the opportunity to burn a stick and uses it to threaten Grayson and Andy. However, Surly accidentally hits the cable through which the gas from the cylinder was leaking, which ignites and makes the cart run at full speed. Grayson tries to close the gas handle and asks for Surly's help, but the squirrel refuses and jumps out of the cart, along with a bag of peanuts. After that, Andy and Grayson try to stop the car, which is heading towards the tree where the animals live. Fortunately, they manage to divert it, but now it's heading towards a mill wheel. Andy manages to jump to safety, but Grayson remains in the cart, which is thrown by the wheel into the large tree. Because of the shock, the tree is completely destroyed by the explosion. With their home destroyed, the animals capture Surly and vote to banish him from the park. With no choice, the squirrel obeys and leaves. On top of the lamppost, Surly prepares to cross the road and Buddy insists that he go along, but the squirrel refuses. When he finally reaches the other side, the squirrel is startled by a hawk billboard and falls into the middle of the street. He gets up, but then has to escape being trampled by pedestrians on the sidewalk. Later, the squirrel hides inside a garbage can, but someone approaches. He grabs a spoon to defend himself and hits a rat, not realizing that it was his friend, Buddy. Again, the squirrel tells his friend to go away, but soon afterwards, garbage rats appear and want to catch the squirrel. Surly then climbs the ladder of a building and reaches the roof, where he finds a cage of pigeons and hides. Soon after, the rats follow him, but Buddy appears and throws a vase at them. Enraged, the rats grab Buddy and threaten to throw him off the roof. Surly then opens the pigeon's cage, grabs onto one of them and rescues his friend just in time. However, the pigeon starts to get off balance and the two of them are knocked to the window of a store. To their surprise, it's a store selling nuts and peanuts. Surly and Buddy then hatch a plan to break into the store. They try to enter through the chimney, but end up outside the store. They then try to make a hole in the wall and remove the bricks, but behind it, there is a solid wall. They then deactivate the power system, but Surly gets quite a shock. Finally, the squirrel throws himself out of a tree towards the window, but he goes through the other side and falls into a dumpster. While the pair think of other plans, a cab pulls up in front of the store and drops off two men, King and his security guard, Knuckles. They enter and find the two guys who were in the park selling peanuts, Lucky and Fingers, as well as a pug called Precious. Seeing this, Surly and Buddy take the opportunity to enter the store and climb up to the ceiling, which is completely surrounded by rat traps. The two try to deactivate the traps and get the cheese, but one of them hits the squirrel's tail, which screams in pain. Precious sees the two of them on the roof and starts barking, only for Fingers to pull out a dog whistle and blow it, which makes the dog's ears hurt. To everyone's surprise, Knuckles also hears the sound of the whistle and is annoyed by it. Meanwhile, in the park, Andy and Grayson are chosen by Norvirus to get food in the city. They receive a backpack with supplies and then cross the street to start their search. Just then, a garbage rat appears and takes their backpack. Grayson chases after the thief, who runs into a lamppost and jumps onto the road. The squirrel does the same and manages to catch him, but a streetcar is approaching and is about to run them over. Fortunately, the two manage to climb into the vehicle and are about to face each other, but before they do, Grayson throws the backpack back at Andy and asks her to continue the search. The next day, in the peanut store, Surly and Buddy take a nap, until a beautiful woman called Lana appears from the doorway. She is King's girlfriend, but doesn't suspect his plans to rob the bank. Meanwhile, Surly is hungry and goes into a nut machine, but Precious sees him go in and starts barking again. Fingers uses the dog whistle again. Only Knuckles gets annoyed and throws it in the garbage can across the street. Without the sound of the whistle, the pug jumps into the nut machine to get the squirrel. Seeing this, Buddy decides to save his friend and jumps into King's shirt. The man desperately tries to pull out the rat, which runs out of his pants and into the street. Precious then overbalances and runs out of the store, along with the nut machine, which hits a lamppost and breaks. Thanks to this, Surly manages to escape and together with his friend, they flee through a lamppost. Despite all this confusion, Surly doesn't want to give up and goes to get the dog whistle from the dump. When he gets there, he runs into Andy, who took the whistle first and realizes that the squirrel is interested in it. While the two are arguing, the gang leader comes out of the store and leaves the door open. Surly then leaves the whistle for later and runs into the store. Inside, he and Buddy find a warehouse full of peanuts and other food. The two plan to eat and take it all away, but inside, Fingers and Lucky appear and put some of the bags on an electric conveyor belt. After the two of them leave, Surly and Buddy start to get their food, without realizing that the pug is also there. She runs to catch up with them and the pair run along the treadmill to the exit. The rat manages to get out, but the squirrel gets stuck in the lid just as Andy appears on the scene. She promises to help him and gives him the whistle on the condition that half the food goes to the park's animals. He accepts the deal and she returns the whistle, but Precious pulls the squirrel into the storeroom. Even so, he threatens her with blowing the whistle, and then the dog gives up attacking him. Seconds later, Andy also enters the warehouse and, seeing so much food, tries to come up with a plan to take it all. Surly suggests digging tunnels to take the bags and Andy decides to go back to the park and ask the animals for help. Once there, Andy explains the plan and then Norvirus orders the groundhogs to accompany her to dig the tunnels, including Mole, who will be the leader of the group. The next morning, the animal team meets Surly and Buddy at the store and begin to put their plan into action. At the same time, King and his henchmen plan to rob the safe by digging a tunnel from the store to the bank. Outside, while the groundhogs are digging the tunnels, Surly sneaks into the storeroom with Pearl's help and starts taking the food out of the bags. Meanwhile, the squirrels continue to dig the tunnel and accidentally push the bricks in the wall, which spark near where the dynamite was. As a result, the fuse is lit, the dynamite explodes and everyone is thrown out of the tunnel. No one is hurt, but Precious shows up and says that her owners heard the explosion and are on their way to the warehouse. Surly then decides to help her and pretends to have been captured so that the men don't punish the dog. The plan works, but the bandits close the tunnel with cement, forcing Surly to come up with another plan to get into the warehouse. Hours later, Andy arrives at the park and hands the animals a bag of food. Seeing this, Norvirus tells Mole that he doesn't like the idea of bringing so much food, as it could take away his control over the animals. So he orders the mole to sabotage the whole plan. Later, Surly is on the roof until he hears a strange noise. Investigating, he sees Mole putting a hose down the tunnel and tries to figure out what he's planning to do, but is startled by Grayson, who suddenly appears. He manages to get back after being taken away by the streetcar, so Surly asks for his help to see what Mole is up to. When they get to the ground, they find the mole about to turn on the hose. Surly tries to stop him, but he accidentally breaks the tap and the water starts to flow into the tunnel. Worst of all, the water also starts to enter the bandits' tunnel, which they were digging at the same time. The squirrel then tries to stop the water in some other way, but suddenly the red bird from Norvirus appears and starts attacking. Surly tries to escape and asks for Precious help, who, seeing the two of them through the store window, runs to save her friend. Pug catches the bird with her mouth, but it manages to escape, only to be hit by a car driving down the street. The squirrel then asks Pearl to turn off the hose, while he goes into the warehouse to save the groundhogs. However, the only way in is to get past the bandits. Even so, he runs towards the warehouse and Knuckles shoots him. Fortunately, the squirrel manages to dodge the bullets and one of them makes a hole in the door, through which Surly manages to get through. Inside, Surly manages to save the two groundhogs and takes them outside on a treadmill. At that moment, Mole tries to run away, but the squirrel, together with Precious, runs after him. The pair manage to corner the mole in an alley and interrogate him. Mole says he did it on orders from Norvirus and Surly decides to tell the group everything. However, when he returns to the store and tells the animals the truth, no one believes him. Surly is furious and decides to go ahead with the plan alone. The squirrel then goes back to the warehouse and starts throwing the bags of food down the conveyor belt, but Fingers sees everything and manages to catch him. The whole gang gathers at the warehouse and plans what to do with the squirrel, but just then Lana appears on the scene. Even though she is disappointed to discover the truth, King decides to continue with the bank robbery and enters the tunnel. Lana then leaves, but first she takes Precious and releases Surly from his cage. The squirrel then escapes from the warehouse, but is captured by two garbage rats. Soon after, Norvirus appears and reveals his plan to hide the food and eliminate all the witnesses, including Surly, Andy and the rest of the team. The raccoon prepares to finish Surly off right there, but everyone is thrown by the explosion coming from the tunnel. The squirrel realizes that the bandits have finally blown up the safe and that they've started exchanging the bags of money there for ones with peanuts and walnuts. Surly then enters the warehouse and looks for his team, only for Norvirus to order the rats to capture him. Meanwhile, Buddy and the groundhogs are hiding and plan to take the bags of food. They enter the tunnel and find the bags of peanuts in a cart. The group pushes it back to the warehouse, but are spotted by the bandits, who try to attack them. As they flee, Surly runs from the garbage rats and manages to stop some of them in hidden traps. However, there is still one rat left, which continues to chase them. The squirrel then climbs onto Fingers' body and the rat does the same, but the squirrel panics and falls onto the treadmill, causing the rat to be thrown into a box of rat traps. Luckily, Surly falls to the ground, unharmed, and realizes that Fingers has dropped his whistle and picks it back up. Soon after, Grayson shows up to help him and the squirrel tells him to lead the team out of the warehouse. At that moment, King sees the animals fleeing and tries to shoot them, only for Surly to jump in and stop him. After leaving the tunnel, Andy finds Norvirus. She's surprised that he's there, but the villain tells her that he's come to help them because Surly wants to trick them and take the food for himself. Meanwhile, Surly manages to escape and climbs up to the roof. From there, he watches the bandits put the bags into two vans. However, King has only put money in his van, while the other, which will be taken by Fingers and Lucky, has bags of peanuts and nuts. Minutes later, Andy gets into the van with the bags of food and intends to get them for the animals. However, Norvirus closes the car door and leaves everyone trapped inside. When the vans set off down the road, Surly, together with Grayson, chase them with the help of pigeons, which take them flying. They manage to reach one of the cars and prepare to save their friends, but Grayson becomes unbalanced and hangs from the front of the car. If that wasn't bad enough, soon afterwards, the red bird from Norvirus returns once again to fight Surly. The two clash on the windshield of the car, which causes Lucky to lose control of the steering and draws the attention of the police. Fortunately, Surly manages to grab the bird and uses the window cleaner to throw it into the window of a building. After that, the squirrel helps Grayson and the two of them set off to open the van door and help their friends. However, Norvirus was in the van and appeared to throw Surly out of the car. Seeing their leader's attitude, the animals realize that the squirrel was telling the truth and vote to banish the raccoon. The villain, however, doesn't give up and throws Surly onto the road and grabs his whistle. The vans speed off towards a bridge, only to find that on the other side, a police roadblock is waiting for them. In addition, more police cars show up to surround them, along with Surly, who took advantage of the ride to save his friends. The situation, however, only gets worse, as Fingers and Lucky realize that the bags have no money in them and go to their boss to make amends. In response, King points his gun at the two henchmen. Meanwhile, Surly climbs into the van and finds Andy, who is unconscious and sets out to save her. At the same time, the police continue to surround the bandits. With no other choice, King takes the other van, which in addition to the bags of peanuts, also has explosives, lights the fuse and sends it straight into the police blockade. The problem is that Surly and Andy are in the same van and are trying to escape. At that moment, one of the policemen fires his gun at the van's tire, which veers off course and crashes into the edge of the bridge. The van is about to fall, and at the last moment, Surly manages to hold onto the bridge with Andy. However, the van crashes and explodes with explosives, causing a large crack in the structure. This causes pieces of the bridge to start falling off, which takes the van. King and Knuckles were in with it. Under the bridge, there is a waterfall with a tree trunk in the middle. The force of the water pulls King's van down the waterfall and onto the log. At that moment, Knuckles starts throwing the bags of money onto a rock and then tries to remove the log so that the van falls and takes his boss with it. At the same time, Surly manages to swim to the trunk, only for Norvirus to appear there too. Suddenly, Buddy appears on top of the van and throws one of the bags at the raccoon, who lets out a dog whistle. Surly seizes the chance and uses the whistle, which causes Knuckles to fumble and fall off the waterfall, along with Norvirus. However, the raccoon manages to escape and pulls Surly out, only for Andy to appear at the last second and hold him back. Realizing that his friends are at risk, Surly breaks free from Andy and falls into the waterfall with the villain. Hours later, Andy and the others cross the river with the sacks of peanuts and reach the park. At that moment, the water begins to carry them to the mill wheel and they all jump ashore. However, Grayson doesn't realize this and is thrown by the wheel, along with the bags of peanuts. Luckily, he lands safely in the tree, while the peanuts fly all over the park. To everyone's surprise, King also managed to escape across the river and ended up in the park. The man, however, is frightened by the animals and flees, only to be surrounded by the police and arrested for his crimes. While the animals celebrate their food, Buddy is sad to have lost his friend. Seconds later, Precious goes to him and takes him to a part of the park, where they find Surly unconscious. Buddy thinks he's eliminated, until Surly wakes up and the friends are reunited. Then Andy appears and gives the squirrel a big hug. With everything settled, Surly and Andy promise that they will get food for the park, but that from now on, they will do it together. Later, Norvirus turns up alive, together with his bird, on a buoy in the middle of the ocean. However, sharks surround them and it will be very difficult to escape. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.